Steve Epley, ladies and gentlemen. So Steve Epley wrote that song, and we've had that song planned for this Sunday for a while. Well, not that long of a while, but the beginning of the week a while, middle of the week a while. That's a while in spiritual community time. And especially when it comes on a divine appointment, it's a while. I have to say that there are a lot of ministers that love when social and social spiritual issues come up and there's a platform to speak from them, because it is a time to share one's wisdom, one's knowledge. And with that, I have to say that it is not ever something that is my favorite experience. If I had my way, I'd steer clear of it with a 10-foot pole. Why? It's a good question about why. I don't know why, but what I know is that when Spirit puts something in front of you that's yours to do, it's time to do it, no matter what that looks like. Did anyone have any thoughts on their mind with this song coming on this morning? Did anyone have thoughts that were already on their minds, that with this song it brought things up? Raise your hand if there were thoughts on your mind. Some of you, maybe some of you not. So I got a text from a friend of mine last night, fairly late, and the text read like this as I'm laying in bed getting ready to go to sleep. This is my good friend that knows that I don't have my face pinned to the news all of the time. So one of the great ones that's there to give me heads ups when there's things that happen. And she said, FYI, one person's name, the situation, the other person's name, was just found not guilty. Should be on the minds and hearts of many tomorrow. Love you. Now, raise your hand if you know what I'm talking about. Okay. If you don't, there was a death, a murder that happened, and it was by a neighborhood watch guy that ABC occurred, and a 17-year-old young man is no longer in his physical body. That's something I would prefer not to touch with a 10-foot pole. Judgment, figuring things out, making an analysis, looking into something, is not something that my human or my spiritual being is comfortable with when it comes to any other human being on this planet. I am most comfortable that I'm not called into those positions, and in fact that I have taken a position on this planet where I generally don't have to ever hold that space, and in fact, the space I hold is the opposite. The space I hold is a space of consciousness, the space of love, the space of compassion, the space of wisdom, the space of intelligence, the space of power, the space of progress, the space of evolution of consciousness. But today when I got this text, or last night when I got this text, I thought to myself, Lord have mercy. The song today is titled Guilty. And the talk that I had planned for us today was titled, Whose Story Is That? And my intention was to go to and speak to that idea of when we tell stories, when we share stories, is it our story? Have we inherited? Where is it coming from? Is it prospering and healing and helping our world? Or is it harming? Is it separating us in consciousness from others? Well, this talk has transformed and taken a turn because I did not avoid the urge to do a late night call and say, let's just forget that song and let's just do something different today. It's not that the urge wasn't there. Believe me, you. The urge was there to start thinking of what other songs do we have? What else could it be? Is there anything else that we could talk about today? But the spirit of wisdom, the spirit of inspiration, the spirit of the breath said, here I am. So I want to first start by saying this. Many of you right now think that one is dead and one is alive. In fact, both are dead and both are alive. Many of us think one is dead and one is alive, yet both are dead and both are alive. Eckhart Tolle says this in The Power of Now. You may find it hard to recognize that time is the cause of your suffering or your problems. You believe that they are caused by specific situations in your life seen from a conventional viewpoint. This is true, but until you have dealt with the basic problem-making dysfunction of the mind, its attachment to the past and future and denial of the now, problems are actually interchangeable. If all of your problems, and think globally here as well, think for our nation, think for our people, think for our world, think for all the parts of your being. Problems are actually interchangeable. If all of our problems or perceived causes of suffering or unhappiness were miraculously removed from us today, but you had not become more present, more conscious, you would soon find yourself with a similar set of problems or causes of suffering, like a shadow that follows you wherever you go. Ultimately, there is only one problem: the time-bound mind itself. The time-bound mind that is within us and that is collective among us believes in every moment that there is either life or death, that one is alive and one is dead, that there is good and bad, there is love and there is evil. But beyond the time-bound mind, there is unity. There is unity consciousness, there is one power, and one presence. You may have found yourself engaging in this question: what would I do? What would I have done? What would I do now? Right? Did you do that as an individual? Do you think our world is doing that with this message that we're getting right now? Did you put yourself into the shoes of the young boy? Did you put yourself into the shoes of his family? Did you put yourself into the shoes of walking in that neighborhood? Did you try to think about what it feels like there? What is it like? Did you try to put yourself into the shoes of the man with the gun? Did you try to put yourself into the shoes of the officer? Did you try to put yourself into the shoes of everyone in that situation? Did you try to put yourself into the shoes of the one who has an opposite viewpoint of yours? Did you try to put yourself into the shoes of the jury? Are you confused yet? Part of our practice is to let go of self into others and let go of other into self. And when we do that, we do go on these adventures of mind, right? And we put ourselves into the minds. And that is an advanced consciousness. It is an advanced worldly consciousness to get out of my own separate sense of self, my own needs, my own being, my own protection of self, of mind, of my family, my being, my life, my country, my world. It is an advanced spiritual practice to get out of that and to be fully in all of the others while being attached to none of them. But one interesting thing can happen when one does that. Things get very confusing, don't they? They, in fact, get confusing and bewildering, and we find that it is the mind that is chasing these things, the mind that is ordering, organizing, reorganizing, judging. And what I find that I come to in my being when I do that hop, what I come to in my being is this sense of pure heart space, this sense of compassion, this sense of love, this sense also of sadness and suffering. But this sense of love and compassion and wisdom and light is stronger, though this human pain body has these other experiences. This light is stronger, and this light is illuminating a path saying, look here. Look towards this light. Because that emotional experience is an emotional experience that one can come to when one recognizes that we are as one body, as one being, on a journey together of collective awakening. collective awakening and collective sleeping. Collectively looking at how do we go about being human beings in spiritual bodies and spiritual aspects and spiritual self. How do we match that? How do we do that not only in myself but in community? It's not the easiest practice because we walk around being very disconnected, and it's very easy to not have these wake-up calls when we live in our own worlds. We seemingly have a low impact on the world, do we not, each one of us as individuals? If you really think about it, each of us as individuals has a seemingly very low impact on the entire world. Just go into Grand Central Station in New York City, stand there for 5 minutes, and you'll feel how very small you are. But that's not the actual truth, is it? That's not the truth of the power of our being. And sometimes life gives us that cosmic 2x4, that hit on the head that says, wake up, guess how large your impact on the world is. Guess how large your impact on the world is. These experiences are this cosmic 2x4. There's a story from Scripture where Jesus teaches about what we all might think this story and this concept of guilty and judgment and suffering and goodness and evil and all of this, right? All of the discord into harmony, all of this evolution of consciousness from Adam's state of consciousness, Adam, mind, Eve's separated state of consciousness into Christ consciousness. We all have a lot of mental ideas about what that is about. There's a teaching by the master teacher, and it goes like this. The scribes and the Pharisees bought a woman who had been caught in adultery, and making her stand before all of them, they said to him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the very act of committing adultery. Now in the law of Moses commands us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They said this to test him, so that they might have some charge to bring against him. Jesus bent down and wrote with his finger on the ground. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "Let anyone among you who is without sin be the first to throw a stone at her." And once again he bent down and wrote on the ground. When they heard it, they went away, one by one, beginning with the elders. And Jesus was left alone with the woman standing before him. Jesus straightened up and said to her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" She said, "No one, sir." And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go your way, and from now on, do not sin again." Sin in unity is missing the mark. Seriously missing the mark. That can be light as perceiving myself as not you. That can be as intense as the gravest, most atrocious human acts. In unity, we define Satan as the adversary, the great universal negative, whose power is derived from the unlawful expression of man's own being. Whose power is derived from the unlawful expression of man's own being. That's very different than the traditional idea of Satan. The traditional idea is that the power is in and of itself a power. This is not. This is the idea that the power is actually a misguided power. It is a power of error. It is my or your or our fueling something that has no business being fueled because it is not a proper, a loving, a wise use of the God field of energy, of the God field of creation, of the God field of consciousness, that in fact it is the opposite. It is illusion. It is separation. So who's guilty of this separation? The master teacher said, pretty much if you're here, you are, right? If you're alive, you are. Some of you might have an idea right now in your minds of why I shared that story. And it might be already churning the cranks in your mind of saying, okay, so what is it, good or bad? Yes or no? What's the answer? Was that story for the boy? Was that story for the man? Was that story about this? Was it about that? Making the connections. Do you feel that? The reason I chose that passage, that scripture, that passage that even if the Bible hasn't had a big place in your life, this is the longest standing, most read book to humanity. Passed down, created, recreated, still alive, controversial, mystical. The reason I shared that story is not actually on the foundation of it being a story about judgment, guilt, or sin. That had very little to do with why I shared that story. I shared that story because that story shows how significant of an impact something that we think that is so insignificant can be. Something that we think is so private can be. Something that we think above all else has nothing to do with anyone else. Nothing to do with anyone else. Can you feel that? This is a woman who Jesus is saying he's aware, people are aware that this woman created adultery. In a lot of people's lives, in a lot of people's minds, that has nothing to do with anyone but the two people who experienced it. Nothing to do with anyone but the two people, or, however many experienced it. But that's not what this mystical story is bringing to us right here and right now. It is saying that what is born and shared of your consciousness, even if you think it has to just do with you, even if you think it is irrelevant to the consciousness around you, the consciousness of your world, it will be, it can be, it is used for the teaching of the principles of life, love, truth, and wisdom, and it is used and will be claimed for the greater good of all humanity and all spiritual beings awakening on the path to God consciousness. A seemingly unimportant woman, one that many might not even wave to, might not even speak to, certainly wouldn't care what's going on in her home or out of her home, is now a story that we, in this year, in this day and age, are talking about. And we're talking about it because a demonstration happened. Because that experience that was whatever it was, that created suffering, also created contemplation, also created an invitation for beings to awaken to a deeper level of their minds, of their consciousness, and of God. The master teacher used that story to circle everyone up around her. And essentially, to some degree, to say, this is what it is here. This is what it is in this field. This is what it is for the legal system. This is what it is for this family. This is what it is here. But here's what it is for you. What it is for you is what you have to pay attention to in your own mind, in your own being, and your own consciousness, right? So what is it that I have? What is the gift that regardless of these ideas that human beings need to go through in systems and structures, what is it that is trying to birth itself in me, in you, in our world? What is it that's saying, I'm here, listen, I'm here, get the deeper practice, get the deeper principle? The magnitude of the far-reaching impact of a seemingly isolated, a seemingly secret, a seemingly in one place at one time having to do with one person or two people or more experience. Is that not still what we're experiencing today? Because all of a sudden, the actions in a neighborhood, a small, seemingly insignificant neighborhood, have brought to each of our hearts, to each of our minds, a deeper questioning, a looking. The impact, the spiritual impact of these individuals in this story that we're discussing right now is very large, isn't it? It's very large. It has many, many levels, many, many layers. There is much there. Part of the lesson is that the days of isolation are over. The days of any human being on this spiritual journey thinking that they're insignificant is over. The days of not looking at everything, looking into everything, looking around everything, above everything, below everything are over. The days of isolation are over. The days of not having an impact and being able to exist on this planet thinking we don't have an impact are over. They're over. What is given here is an opportunity for humanity to wake up once again as individuals and collectives to the value of life. To the value of life. Not your life, not my life, God's life. The value of life. The sacredness of life. The humanity of life. The error and the sin of life. The suffering in life. And most importantly, our role and our responsibility in life. So who have we come here to be? What it is in my mind, what it is in your mind, all that comes up in our minds affects the whole. It creates. All of it creates. Managing each other's behavior, managing humanity's behavior, can we agree that it has all become unmanageable? Globally, governmentally, socially, religiously. To the human mind, it's become unmanageable. So just for a moment, could we try on the possibility that this is not about managing each other's behavior? This is about awakening to the inner management and also about trusting the cosmic management. The more we think it's about managing behavior in ourselves and in each other and in our world, the more unmanageable it will likely become. It will likely get worse. The shoulds, the shouldn'ts, the honorable, the dishonorable, the right and the wrong, the acceptable and the intolerable, the taking it into my own hands, the giving it up and doing nothing about it, falling asleep to it. Do you see where I'm going? Falling asleep to it. I'm either going to ignore it, act like it doesn't exist, or I'm going to go in there and I'm going to fix it myself. On a lighter note, it wasn't really a lighter note, actually. I was at a film the other day and went to see one film. And have you ever done that where I was just so excited to go to a film. And I felt some interesting energy, and I felt like I need to just relax and go to a film. And so I went to one. We went to one. And have you gone to a movie when you're really excited to go to a movie and you go into it and you sit through the first few minutes and you just say, forget it. Just forget it, right? Sometimes they're either just so ridiculous, it's almost hard to, here's a judgment, it's almost hard to see that like humanity is spending its time looking at this. Like, I don't even, who am I with? What is going on? If this is the use of our time, blah. What we could have done with the money that made this film? That's really judgmental and sad for the film. But that was the sense that I had. So now I'm going to tell you a bad Rev moment. So we took our tickets that said one film on it. And we went to the next, right? It just did a few. Now with cell phones, it's great. Can I give you a little hint? With cell phones, you can actually look up what time all the movies are starting. No, okay, that's really bad. But so we snuck into the other movie. We did, and sat there for a little bit, waited through the previews, watched the first 10 minutes, and thought, seriously, come on. Like, at least it has to be engaging. Like, I can't feel sick after, like, I think there may have been one more movie. Anyway, finally, we found ourselves at a movie that I could not say that this movie, I'm not going to, recommend or not recommend this movie, but at least it was engaging. And it was the film that had a couple outstanding points. I really wanted to see a movie, so I was determined to see one. I was not going to leave that theater without seeing a movie. And I really got it. And if you see this movie, I'll tell you what the movie is after. And I'm not going to spoil it, but really, even if I do, I think you're okay. The glory moment in this film for me was the moment where it said, in Jerusalem, now you're going to think this is going to get all deep. In Jerusalem, there's a few moments, actually. But no, I'm going to tell you the one before Jerusalem first. The first one was this, where one person was going through their suffering and their pain and lashed out at the other person and said, "You don't know how it feels." Some of you movie buffs are on the edges of your seat, aren't you? Could you all just lean a little forward for me? You don't know how it feels. And the other guy said, "I watched my wife turn and then turn my child into a zombie." Someone saw this film. And all of a sudden, all the judgment was gone. It was just wiped off the face. Because he said, "No, I do. Your family, at least there's hope. At least they're still here. But mine turned into monsters, zombies, and my wife actually destroyed my child." Right? So the judgment was gone. The other moment of glory was when the safe city of Jerusalem, the safe area, there was one glory moment where the leader said about protecting them from the zombies, right? Because they were actually letting more people in, trying to keep them safe from the zombies. And this guy that was trying to save everything was shocked. Now I'm giving too much of the story, but I know it's so exciting. You're going to go after Sunday service. So they were trying to keep the people out, and this guy was kind of going like, "Why would you let anyone in?" So they were keeping people out together, keeping the zombies out, but they were letting the individuals in that were still healthy, that were still Christed in consciousness. And as they were moving to let them in, he said, how could you be doing it? That's so risky. That's so risky. Just get rid of all of them. Don't let them in." And the guy standing in Jerusalem leading the people said, "Each one we save is one more we don't have to kill." I know, you're like, do I laugh or is that a Zen Buddha moment? Each one we save is one more we don't have to destroy, worry about, kill, or fight. So what if? What if we take every experience to recognize that a true advocate for peace, a true advocate for life, a true advocate for spirit can be born in every moment, and that in fact there is all of this consciousness among us, all of this consciousness all of the time, and it is ours to co-create and ours to choose. That our role, in fact, is larger than we know, and in an instant, we are all involved in every activity. This is the constant truth of our universe, and the only difference is that it's usually invisible, and it's usually easy to ignore. Everything we do, everything we are, gives others an opportunity to contemplate their life, their choices, and their God. Namaste.